Hi everyone, I'm Vinod and welcome to my channel, Win Career Talks. So in today's conversation, I'm going to be talking about PhD programs and a way to help PhD applicants. So one of the toughest jobs when applying for PhD programs is to write a meaningful statement of purpose. The question always is, what do you write in a good statement of purpose? There are a lot of examples available on the internet, but they all talk about stereotypical ways of writing a statement of purpose. So I've tried to give some clarity on this topic in an earlier video. So if you go back to one of my videos on how to create a great statement of purpose, I've given some tips in terms of how you can flesh it out really well. And the title of that YouTube presentation was 5 tips towards creating a great statement of purpose. So I'm going to recount that and also share a very good example of a statement of purpose I saw on the internet. I had to search a lot to find that statement of purpose, but I really feel that once you look at it, it's going to absolutely give you an impression of what is it that professors and academia looks for in very bright PhD students. So the example I'm going to share is of a PhD student who applied to MIT and ended up going to Stanford for a PhD program, but I'm going to share that PowerPoint presentation in a little bit. But let's go back to what I mentioned earlier in my earlier presentation in terms of what's the important factors for a statement of purpose. It's basically 5 points. One is that, why do you want to study? Like, why do you want to go for a PhD program? Why this specific PhD program and why this university? So that's more clarity you want to add. You also want to talk about which professors you are interested in working with. How are you qualified? And finally, you want to talk about some superpower you bring to the table in terms of what is it about you which makes your candidature stand out. I also talked about how you got to be honest and you got to just talk about research because that's the most important part of a PhD program. So let's jump straight in and let me share this slide I want to show to you folks in terms of a great statement of purpose. So this person I'm going to be talking about is a student called Zahid Hussain. He's from Bangladesh, passed out from 2006, the undergrad program. He did his master's for a couple of years. I'm going to show what his background is. He did his bachelor's in North South University in Bangladesh, which is a fairly well-known university. Worked for 2 years, then went for a master's from Simon Fraser University, a very unknown university. Then went on for a PhD from Stanford University. And since then, he has been working in Meta, a company, and then after that, he has been working in Facebook in Redmond, close to Seattle. So something stands out that if you want to go for a top-notch PhD program, you don't have a great candidature, you can always do a master's program and you can work with very good professors in the US, and that makes your chances of getting into PhD programs much easier. But let me stop here and let's just jump to the statement of purpose in terms of, this is the statement of purpose which Zahid has put up for his PhD program when he applied to MIT. This is somewhere near 2011. And I believe he applied to MIT and Stanford and probably got into Stanford and ended up going there. But this will give an example of some of the things I talked about and how important it is to really flesh things out really well in the statement of purpose. So let's jump in. The first paragraph here talks about the primary research objective being in computer graphics, talks about studying computer science, talks about getting involved in research work, and talks about specifically what the person is interested in. I love this opening paragraph because it jumps straight to the topic. It cuts to the chase without wasting much time. So the person doesn't waste time talking about childhood, doesn't talk about non-academics. It is all about academics, which is fantastic because that's how it's got to be. You got to write a statement of purpose where you say exactly what you bring to the table. Just summarize what your interest is, what do you want to study, right in your first paragraph. Absolutely great. The second piece is that this person now jumps to research being done in the past. So he talks about some research he has done and what he brings to the table. And he gets into the details. Now, I think that's super important. This person talks about how they worked on tracing detailed fragment boundaries, a polygonal mesh, talked about geometric analysis algorithms, statistical distributions, talks about statistical models, and studying crack patterns. Also talked about computer-assisted fragment reconstruction algorithms, and also talked about regenerative models. So these are keywords which make this statement of purpose stand out because they're already touching on a bunch of things in terms of what the person already has a very good knowledge of. And these are exactly the things which professors want to read in a statement of purpose. They want to talk less about what has happened in the past in terms of what have you done in before you did your undergrad, and they want to focus on what have you learned during your undergrad and graduate program, which makes you good for a PhD program. The professor is looking at it from the point of view of like, I want to spend the minimal time training students to do research. So if you already say that you bring a lot of research experience to the table, the professor is convinced that, okay, this person is someone who can begin to work on projects straight away without me needing to spend time training this person. So that's definitely something which can make your candidate just stand out really well. So already in terms of the 5 checkpoint list that I talked about earlier, this student, Zahid, has already talked about what this person brings to the table, how is he qualified. He's talked about why he wants to study. He has talked about what some of his interests are. He continues, he talks about some of the other work he had done with respect to additional research work they've done. He talked about how he was interested in getting into this specific topic. And I think these are great ways of giving a very good story. So Zahid is basically spinning a really good story in terms of what has worked well for him in his application. Zahid continues, talks about doing research with physics-based heuristics, talks about collaborating with graduate students, talked about utilizing the statistical model to improve existing reconstruction algorithms and develop new algorithms. So it's in a way hinting to the professor that these are the kind of projects Zahid loves to do, and this is what he would want to continue doing right now. So it's also a note to the professor that, hey, professor, if you select me, this is the work I'm gonna do. Zahid continues talking about cultural heritage, and he uses that to talk about scanning, modeling, visualization, user interface dealing. What I find interesting is that without getting into too much of technical details about the exact nature of the projects being done, Zahid keeps more of a 10,000 foot view in terms of looking at the big picture in terms of what are the broad topics Zahid has learned. And I think that's amazing because I think it's very common for students to just get lost in the research work they've done. Professors don't take that very seriously because every research project is different. So they know that whatever you've done in the past may not be what you do in the future, but they want to get overall gist of what are some of the broad topics you have learned, some broad skills you have picked up. So that's something they really look forward to. Zahid talks about how he wants to do research in computer graphics with broad applications in medicine and education. Interesting. By the way, MIT has got a very strong program by which you can do interdisciplinary research with the medicine school at Harvard. So if you want to study medicine and also study computer science, it's actually great to be at MIT or at Harvard Medical School because there's also a lot of cross collaboration work. So clearly this person has done some paid work in terms of going to the websites, looking at some of the cross disciplinary research. So that again makes the candidate very attractive. Zahid also talks about how the EECS department, engineering and computer science department is super attractive. He talks about specific professors, their research work. He talks about some of the things he likes. I think Zahid should have gone into more detail in terms of what exactly is the research he had liked with each one of these professors, because right now it seems super vague. It's an interesting beginning, but I would really appreciate if he had gotten into a lot more details in terms of what is it about the research he liked, getting into details, and also saying how he can take the research forward. I think that could have been better, but anyway, I think he has already made a good beginning by talking about some of the research, talks about how he loved reading about this specific paper, procedural modeling of structurally sound masonry buildings. When I read it, I have a little mixed feeling. I'm like, if you just say I especially enjoy reading a paper, I'm like, what the hell does it mean? you need to be more clear in terms of saying that what is it you liked, what is that one topic you liked, or how you want to advance the research. I think that could have been even more powerful. So already Zahid has also talked about one more topic I had sketched out earlier, which professors are you interested in. He has talked about why is this specific program. He talked about why this university. So already, right, a lot of the questions are being answered. The ending, if you look at it, it talks about their interest in computer graphics, computational geometry, talks about photography and art being a source of inspiration. And I mean, it's a very standard closing paragraph, nothing fantastic. So there's definitely one part missing about what is some of the superpowers which Zahid brings to the table. But keeping that aside, overall, I think it's a very strong statement of purpose. So this basically is the end. I would probably give this statement of purpose a rating of probably 8 out of 10, because I think the biggest gap is probably this space about research with professors where he has not gone into enough detail in terms of what is it he likes interesting. Just saying that something was especially interesting to read, or I especially enjoy reading the paper, I guess is not enough. You just need to get into a lot more detail. But otherwise, a very strong statement of purpose, and I'm not surprised that the person got into the Stanford PhD program. And I think there's a good chance this person should also have gotten into the MIT PhD program. So this is a very good example of a very good statement of purpose written by a top-notch research student in the US. I'll pass on the links to both the statement of purpose and the profile of Zahid. So feel free to just look at these websites if you're interested. And folks, let me know what your comments are. And most importantly, do subscribe to my channel, and feel free to ask me questions in terms of what did you find this interesting, or what other topics would you want me to touch on in the future. Till then, so long, folks. Have a good one. Appreciate it.